Planning for effective communication. It's pretty much impossible to escape communicating with others. It's something that we generally engage in all day long, and we can occur in many forms from verbal to nonverbal, written or digital, etc. The goal of any communication is to get a specific message across, and assuring that you are practicing effective communication techniques can help to guarantee that the message is being received as intended. Thus, regardless of the setting, being able to communicate effectively with other people is critical to your success as a leader and a community member. Planning for effective communication. Planning for effective communication. It's pretty much impossible to escape communicating with others. It's something that we generally engage in all day long, and we can occur in many forms from verbal to nonverbal, written or digital, etc. The goal of any communication is to get a specific message across, and assuring that you are practicing effective communication techniques can help to guarantee that the message is being received as intended. Thus, regardless of the setting, being able to communicate effectively with other people is critical to your success as a leader in a community. The process of communication, also known as the communication feedback loop. So Merriam-Webster defines communication as a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. And communication in its most basic form can be broken down into a specific set of roles and actions that all result in the transference of an understanding of a message. And this whole process is otherwise known as the communication feedback loop, which you can see here in this slide. So it consists of a sender who will relay a message by encoding their thoughts into words or actions, and the recipient will then decode that message in order to decide upon a specific meaning. Now, this is otherwise known as listening, which is a key tool to any effective communicator, as I will touch upon in a further slide. Unfortunately, during the process of encoding and decoding a message, misunderstandings can occur, and the intended message becomes tainted in some sense by what is termed noise. For example, if the listener incidentally tunes out part of the speaker's conversation, or if the speaker uses words that the receiver doesn't quite understand, this can be considered noise, and that message will be miscommunicated in this sense. Now, any response of the receiver to a message is considered feedback. Now, this feedback can be either positive or negative, and it can be in the form of words, actions, behaviors. And in the case where the receiver is having difficulty understanding the message, the receiver may respond with feedback asking for clarification on the subject. It can be in forms other than words, such as action of a receiver may take to the message, such as taking a left as you directed to get to the bathroom. Feedback can also exist in the form of body language. And for example, if a student may roll their eyes after receiving a reprimand, indicating to the teacher that they were heard, but likely not taken seriously. An effective communicator will know how to adjust their message to suit the receiver's given feedback. If there is a misunderstanding, for example, the sender may then repeat the message again or ask questions to clarify where the receiver is having trouble understanding the message. When this feedback loop is functioning appropriately, both the sender and the receiver are given the best opportunity for communicating the right information in order to ultimately increase productivity and engagement all around. The process of communication, also known as the communication feedback loop. So Merriam-Webster defines communication as a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. And communication in its most basic form can be broken down into This whole process is otherwise known as the communication feedback loop, which you can see in this slide. So it consists of a sender who will relay a message by encoding their thoughts into words or actions, and the recipient will then decode that message in order to decide upon specific meaning. Now, this is otherwise known as listening, which is a key tool to any effective communicator, as I will touch upon in a further slide. Unfortunately, during the process of encoding and decoding a message, misunderstandings can occur, and the intended message becomes tainted in some sense by what is termed noise. For example, if the listener incidentally tunes out part of the speaker's conversation, or if the speaker uses words that the receiver doesn't quite understand, this can be considered noise, and that message miscommunicated in a sense. Now, any response of the receiver to a message is considered feedback. This feedback can be either positive or negative, and it can be in the form of words, actions, and behaviors. And in the case where the receiver is having difficulty understanding the message, the receiver may respond with feedback asking for clarification on the subject. It can be in forms other than words, such as the action a receiver may take to the message, such as hitting the left as you directed to get to the bathroom. Feedback can also exist in the form of body language. For example, the student may roll their eyes after receiving a reprimand, indicating to the teacher that they were heard, but likely not taken seriously. An effective communicator will know how to adjust their message to suit the receiver's given feedback. If there is a misunderstanding, for example, the sender may then repeat the message again or ask questions to clarify when the receiver is having trouble understanding the message. When this feedback loop is functioning appropriately, both the sender and the receiver are given the best opportunity for communicating the right information in order to ultimately increase productivity and engagement all around. Communication is based upon how people use messages to generate meaning. And for ancient people, communication took on the art of persuasion through public speaking and oratory means. According to ancient Greek orator Isocrates, within each of us is a power to persuade others and make clear our desires, and that without the power to communicate with one another, no institution would ever be able to be maintained. Now, in general, there are 5 forms of communication that are exchanged between a sender and the intended receiver. The first is verbal, which is also known as oral, which is any communication that occurs between two individuals by word of mouth. It's quick, precise, and it allows for an ease of interaction between the sender and receiver. This is a very effective method and convenient. And when it comes to assuring the message is being conveyed appropriately, this really is the best way to go. Good verbal communication skills are very beneficial to leadership roles, and it's a key quality that's sought by employers when reviewing candidates. Now, nonverbal communication or interpersonal communication is a form that includes the behaviors that aren't spoken but are otherwise interpreted by the receiver. These include body language, tone of voice, and other personality-based qualities. Body language involves expressions or mannerisms that are expressed, and the example of the student rolling their eyes comes into play here. Now, the next form is written communication, which encompasses many, many different types, especially today with the increasing prevalent use of technology. This form of communication is very broad. It involves sending a message with the use of words, and common use today can be found with forums, discussions, emails, social media posts, and these all exist as either formal, such as business letters, or informal, as in text messaging. Now, formal and informal communication are also prevalent in the communication realm. Now, formal communication can exist in the form of emails, reports, letters, and these act to document information, to make things official. Informal communication, on the other hand, involves interactions that are completely unofficial. These range from text messaging to social media engagements. And each of these types of communication has its advantages over the other. With formal, for instance, it's best when attempting to finalize a thought, policy, decision, or to establish procedures and to assure that all steps are clearly stated. Formal communications minimize, I'm sorry, formal communications are official documents of an interaction, and informal communications will help with getting people's ideas to flow as the style is generally less restricted. There's fear of judgment here, and that helps to encourage the communicator to be more forthcoming with their thoughts. Now, although formal communication is best with professional interactions, it can sometimes create a distance because it's so impersonal, whereas the informal communication can become overly opinionated and can get out of hand, as seen with many social media comment battles. Now, visual communication, the final form here, is any variety such as animation, illustration, video, advertising, design, color, typography, etc. These forms take a message and graphically represent it to create meaning. And the medical community, for example, really commonly relies on this form of communication to help relay information to their patients regarding medication or disease, as many times these types of concepts can be pretty difficult to convey with just words. According to ancient Greek orator Socrates, within each of us is a power to persuade others and make clear our desires, and that without the power to communicate with one another, no institution would ever be able to be maintained. Now, in general, there are 5 forms of communication that are exchanged between the sender and the intended receiver. The first is verbal, which is also known as oral, which is any communication that occurs between 2 individuals by word of mouth. It's quick, precise, and it allows for an ease of interaction between the sender and receiver. This is a very effective method and convenient when it comes to assuring the message is being conveyed appropriately. This really is the best way to go. Good verbal communication skills are very beneficial to leadership roles, and it's a key quality that's sought by employers when reviewing candidates. Now, nonverbal communication, or interpersonal communication, is a form that includes the behaviors that aren't spoken but are otherwise interpreted by the receiver. These include body language, tone of voice, and other personality-based qualities. Body language involves expressions or mannerisms that are expressed, and the example of the student rolling their eyes comes into play here. Now, the next form is written communication, which encompasses many, many different types. Especially today, with the increasing prevalent use of technology, this form of communication is very broad. It involves sending a message with the use of words, and common use today can be found in forums, discussions, emails, social media posts, and these all exist as either formal, such as business letters, or informal, as in text messaging. Now, formal and informal communication are also prevalent in the communication realm. Now, formal communication can exist in the form of emails, reports, letters. These act to document information, to make things official. Formal communication, on the other hand, involves interactions that are completely unofficial. These range from text messaging to social media engagements. And each of these types of communication have its establish procedures to ensure that all steps are clearly stated. Formal communications minimize, formal communications are official documents of an interaction, and informal communications will help with getting people's ideas to flow, as the style is generally less restricted. There's fear of judgment here, that helps to encourage the communicator to be more forthcoming with their thoughts. Now, although formal communication is best with professional interactions, it can sometimes create a distance because it's so impersonal, whereas the informal communication can become overly opinionated and can get out of hand, as seen with many social media comment boards. Now, visual communication, final form here, is any variety such as animation, illustration, video, advertising, design, color, typography, etc. These forms take a message and graphically represent it to create meaning. And the medical community, for example, really commonly relies on this form of communication to help relay information to their patients regarding medication or disease, as many times these types of concepts can be pretty difficult to convey with just words. Research into the topic of communication has showed me that there's some standard skills that are universal, and it's regardless of setting or the parties that are communicating. It's well understood that those with a solid knowledge and understanding of communication and the skills that are necessary to be successful, they are able to maintain and create healthy relationships with others, and they're great additions to society as they help to support productive communities. Now, to guarantee effective or successful communication, there are certain skills that should be practiced. And this particular graphic here highlights 6 of these skills that I find especially important when engaging in communication. Now, each of these skills, they're able to be honed and practiced, and over time, your skills can amplify, which will improve your chance for success. Now, effective communicators, one, are great listeners, and in my opinion, this skill is actually the most important. One of the most effective ways to becoming a good communicator is being a good listener, because it's a two-way process. Being able to listen is just as important as how well you can speak or write. When you're actively listening to someone, you're also conveying to them a sense of respect and that you are hearing them out, making them more likely to want to share information with you. In fact, you learn more when you're listening than you do when you're speaking, and that provides the communicator with your full attention as well, and that can help them to assure that the message is being relayed accurately. Now, another bonus to being a good listener is that it helps to make the other person feel comfortable, and that'll make them more likely to open up. And that active listening is going to help you pay close attention to that person, which is going to ensure them that you are engaged. And you're also going to be able to ask questions as needed to clarify any misunderstandings that may be set off in the message. And the active and engaged listener thus can help the receiver or the sender understand that what is being sent across isn't actually being sent across in the way that they'd like. And then they can adjust to achieve the desired response. For nonverbal skills, the best communicators are those that are also very aware of their nonverbal messages that they're constantly sending. Now, this is our body language, as mentioned in the previous slide. It's a key component to any of interaction, and assuring that these indicators are on par with your message is critical, because body language, hand gestures, eye contact, tone of voice, they all impact the message that's being transmitted. And if these are non-receptive types of cues, then the message may be misconstrued and poorly received. So, just maintaining, for example, active eye contact with an individual can indicate that you're actively engaged with them and you're interested and receptive to what they have to say. With soft body language, a relaxed tone of voice, for example, the receiver will be more likely to respond appropriately and feel more comfortable to share their thoughts and concerns. Now, friendliness is another key skill and a quality that's very underrated because as human beings, we do have a responsibility to practice kindness with each other because it fosters growth and respect and healthy relationships. A friendly tone or just a simple smile can mean all the difference during a tense communication. And this type of tone also sets a more relaxed and an open environment that can help, again, make the individual more likely to express their thoughts and opinions. Mindedness is also important, and it comes into play in any interaction. It, to being receptive to the other's opinions and their point of view. It can help to open up a dialogue that would otherwise be absent. When you engage with people of different worldviews, it provides you the opportunity to be exposed to new ways of thinking and new lessons. This skill, like listening, conveys to the other party that you do respect them because you are willing to engage with their differing ideas. Now, feedback is can come as either being given or received. And it's not only important in assuring that messages are being conveyed appropriately, it's also important to your growth as a communicator. It can be in the form of positive or negative feedback, and regardless of it, it allows for a chance to grow or improve. It's critical that efforts be made once the feedback is received to implement the suggestion, or the effective communication will fail. Now, confidence is a very important skill that's kind of universal throughout life with many interactions that you'll have. And this skill is important because it does show that you believe in the message that you're trying to convey. Your confidence will not only instill a belief in your message, it's going to also instill confidence in the listener as well as the messages is being decoded. So, confidence in communicating can be done through the maintenance of eye contact or sustainment of a firm and friendly tone as you interact. Confidence needs to be present, but not to the extreme where it can be taken as smugness or arrogance. Research into the topic of communication has showed me that there's some standard skills that are universal, and it's regardless of setting or the parties that are communicating. It's well understood that those with a solid knowledge and understanding of communication, the skills that are necessary to be successful, they are able to maintain and create healthy relationships with others, and they're great additions to society as they help to support productive communities. Now, to guarantee effective or successful communication, there are certain skills that should be practiced. And this particular graphic here highlights 6 of these skills that I find especially important when engaging in communication. Now, each of these skills, they're able to be honed and practiced, and over time, your skills can amplify, which will improve your chance for success. Now, effective communicators, one, are great listeners, and in my opinion, this skill is actually the most important. One of the most effective ways to becoming a good communicator is being a good listener, because it's a two-way process. To listen is just as important as how well you can speak or write. When you're actively listening to someone, you're also conveying to them a sense of respect and that you are hearing them out, making them more likely to want to share information with you. In fact, you learn more when you're listening than you do when you're speaking, and that provides the communicator with your full attention as well. That can help them to assure that listening is going to help you pay close attention to that person, which is going to ensure them that you are engaged, and you're also going to be able to ask questions as needed to clarify any misunderstandings that may be set off in the message. And the active and engaged listener thus can help the receiver or the sender understand that what is being sent across isn't actually being sent across in the way that they like, and then they can adjust to achieve the desired response. For nonverbal skills, the best communicators are those that are also very aware of their nonverbal messages that they're constantly sending. Now, this is our body language, as mentioned in the previous slide. It's a key component to any interaction, and assuring that these indicators are on par with your message is critical, because body language, hand gestures, eye contact, tone of voice, they all impact the message that's being transmitted. And if these are non-receptive types of cues, then the message may be misconstrued and poorly received. So just maintaining, for example, active eye contact with an individual can indicate that you're actively engaged with them and you're interested and receptive to what they have to say. With soft body language or relaxed tone of voice, for example, the receiver will be more likely to respond appropriately and feel more comfortable to share their thoughts and concerns. Now, friendliness is another key skill, a quality that's very underrated, because as human beings, we do have a responsibility to practice kindness with each other, because it fosters growth, respect, and healthy relationships. A friendly tone or just a simple smile can mean all the difference during intense communication. And this type of tone also sets a more relaxed and open environment that can help, again, make the individual more likely to express their thoughts and opinions. Open-mindedness is also important, and it comes into play in any interaction. To being receptive to the other's opinions and their point of view can help to open up a dialogue that would otherwise be absent. When you engage with people of differing worldviews, it provides you the opportunity to be exposed to new ways of thinking and new lessons. This skill, like listening, conveys to the other party that you do respect them because you are willing to engage with their differing ideas. Now, feedback can come as either being given or received. It's not only important in ensuring that messages are being conveyed appropriately, it's also important to your growth as a communicator. It can be in the form of positive or negative feedback, and regardless of it, it allows for a chance to grow or improve. It's critical that efforts be made once the feedback is received to implement the suggestion for the effective communication will fail. Now, confidence is a very important skill that's kind of universal throughout life, many interactions that you'll have. And this skill is important because it does show that you believe in the message that you're trying to convey. Your confidence will not instill a belief in the message, it's going to also instill confidence in the listener as well, as the message is decoded. So confidence in communicating can be done through the maintenance of eye contact or sustainment of a firm, friendly tone as you interact. Confidence needs to be present, but not to the extreme where it can be taken as smugness or arrogance. As demonstrated in the previous slides, the most effective communicators are open-minded, confident, skilled, and respectful listeners that follow a specific communication feedback loop. Unfortunately, not all communications occur in an effective way, and not every message is conveyed as it was meant. And this is especially true in higher education, where generational differences, organizational culture, and change spark difficulties as communications continue. There are many different styles of communication that people undergo, And some people are more controlling, some more analytical, while some are more likely to collaborate or socialize. And in the higher education setting, these styles are all present, and being able to effectively communicate to each requires adjustments tailored to each style. For example, being more direct with the controlled type of communicator, or more relaxed and patient with the collaborator type of communicator. Now, the many forms that are utilized for communication in higher education can also present an issue. Which will be the best option for a message I'm trying to get across to this specific audience I'm targeting? This can be difficult in today's age where the forms of communication are seemingly endless. There are pros and cons to each, and the most efficient communicators will choose the best form for that specific interaction. Now, the audiences also vary in higher education. So universities tend to be rich in diversity, so being aware of this when communicating is helpful to assure that you choose the best form, style, or modality to convey your message. And not only are your audiences diverse in background, they're also diverse in age and occupation. So it's not likely that everyone's going to agree upon the style or the form that you've chosen, and that's something that is best dealt with by switching up the styles and forms used and adding variety to your communications. Organizational changes also present issues in higher education because as time progresses, positions in the institution will change. These changes can cause hiccups in communication due to modifications that aren't adjusted for yet. When changes are made to policies, procedures, or staffing, there can be issues where once there weren't any. Now, once changes are enacted, it's vital that these are communicated immediately to all those impacted by the change, and that'll avoid any future issues. And assuring that these changes are made known to all is going to help develop trust in the system that they're a part of, and that will also enhance performance all around. Now, the organizational culture of an institution also has an impact on how communication is handled. The culture of the higher education institution is its set of values, its beliefs, norms, and attitudes that shape the way in which its members behave and interact. Now, if these values and norms aren't appropriately or effectively communicated to the members, issues will inevitably surface, as only with effective communication can an organization truly succeed. So, this culture is generally learned over time, and the best leaders are going to model and communicate these values and norms in a way that's going to be easily and accurately perceived by the receiver. As demonstrated in the previous slides, the most effective communicators are open-minded, confident, skilled, and respectful listeners that follow a specific communication feedback. Unfortunately, not all communications occur in an effective way, and not every message is conveyed as intended. This is especially true in higher education, where generational differences, organizational culture, and change are difficulties as communications continue. There are many different styles of communication that people undergo, and some people are more controlling, some more analytical, while some are more likely to collaborate or socialize. And in the higher education setting, these styles are all present, and being able to effectively communicate to each requires adjustments tailored to each style. For example, being more direct with the controlled type of communicator, or more relaxed and patient collaborator type of communicator. Now, the many forms that are utilized for communication in higher education can also present an issue. Which will be the best option for a message I'm trying to get across to this specific audience I'm targeting? This can be difficult in today's age where the forms of communication are seemingly endless. There are pros and cons to each, and the most efficient communicators will choose the best form for that specific interaction. audiences also vary in higher education. So universities tend to be rich in diversity, so being aware of this when communicating is helpful to ensure that you choose the best form, style, or modality to convey your message. And not only are your audiences diverse in background, they're also diverse in age and occupation. So it's not likely that everyone's going to agree upon the style or form that you've chosen. And that's something that is best dealt with by switching up the styles and forms used and adding variety to your communications. Organizational changes also present issues in higher education because as time progresses, positions in the institution will change. These changes can cause hiccups in communication due to modifications that aren't adjusted for yet. Changes are made to policies, procedures, or staffing. There can be issues where once there weren't any. Now, once changes are enacted, it's vital that these are communicated immediately to all those impacted by the change, and that will avoid any future issues. And assuring that these changes are made known to all is going to help develop trust in the system that they're a part of, and that will also enhance performance all around. Now, the organizational culture of an institution also has an impact on how communication is handled. Culture in a higher education institution is its set of values, its beliefs, norms, and attitudes that shape the way its members behave and interact. Now, if these values and norms aren't appropriately or effectively communicated to the members, issues will inevitably surface, as only with effective communication can an organization truly succeed. So this culture is generally learned over time, and the best leaders are going to model and communicate these values and norms in a way that's going to be easily and accurately received by the receiver. Arguments or conflicts are going to occur as a result of differing opinions or many times just basic miscommunication. And regardless of the cause, these confrontations are inevitable, and it's best to learn how to deal with them appropriately to avoid any further escalation. Now, this escalation will occur when the people involved in the interaction no longer listen and they begin reacting instead. Now, ultimately, the resolution to these conflicts will come from being direct, honest, and respectful in our interactions. One key to conflict resolution is to listen with intent and to not think ahead of your next comment. Always aim to learn something new is going to guide you to a resolution. And pause and answer questions as needed. It's also vital to practice compassion and empathy. That's going to help show the other person that you have found appreciation for their view, even though you may or may not agree. It's also important to be inquisitive, which is going to allow you the opportunity for a deeper understanding of the other person's message and what it is that they're trying to express, and to strive to learn as much as possible to show them that you do care about understanding their point of view. And last but not least, probably the most important, is respect. As with any successful interaction or relationship, respect is going to be a fundamental aspect of. Now, being aware of your tone of voice and the words you use can make all the difference in creating a resolution to a conflict. Responding in a way that builds up the other and not tears them down, for example, is very helpful. So all in all, communication is something that's very important and practice on a day-to-day basis. Conflicts may arise, but the key is that if you are engaging appropriate skills and practicing these skills and adjusting to positive and negative feedback, you will become the best communicator you can and hopefully continue to Arguments or conflicts are going to occur as a result of differing opinions or many times just basic miscommunication. And regardless of the cause, these confrontations are inevitable, and it's best to learn how to deal with them appropriately to avoid any further escalation. Now, this escalation will occur when the people involved in the interaction no longer listen and they begin reacting instead. Now, ultimately, the resolution to these conflicts will come from being direct, honest, and respectful in our interactions. One key to conflict resolution is to listen with intent and to not think ahead of your next comment. Always aim to learn something new that's going to guide you to a resolution, and pause and answer questions as needed. It's also vital to practice compassion and empathy. That's going to help show the other person that you have found appreciation for their view, even though you may or may not agree. It's also important to be inquisitive, which is going to allow you the opportunity for a deeper understanding of the other person's message and what it is that they're trying to express, and to strive to learn as much as possible to show them that you do care about understanding their point of view. And last but not least, and probably the most important, is respect. As with any successful interaction or relationship, respect is going to be a fundamental aspect of. Now, being aware of your tone of voice and the words you use can make all the difference in creating a resolution to conflict. Responding in a way that builds up the other and not tears them down, for example, is very helpful. So, all in all, communication is something that's very important and practice on a day-to-day basis. Conflicts may arise, but the key is that if you are engaging in the appropriate skills and practicing these skills and adjusting to positive and negative feedback, you will become the best communicator you can and hopefully continue to grow as a communicator, student, and person.